Wilton Atkins, thanks for joining us here on Yellow Shelf.
G'day, Joe. How you going?
I'm so well. Wilton, where do we find you today? I know you've got an accent, but where in the world are you located?
Ah, yeah. So I'm a New Zealander, but I'm currently living in Phuket, Thailand.
Nice. Very, very nice part of the world. So thanks for joining us. I'm talking to you today. You have a series of 4 kids' books regarding personal development mindset book specifically for young kids. So I'm going to hand over to you, Wilton, and you can tell us all about your book series and what do we need to know?
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so that's right. They are personal development books for children, but I don't want that to sort of put off any of the parents that might be buying books for their kids because they're done. We made them, my wife and I, in a fun and rhyming way. So they have a narrative in a fun, childlike way. And it's not about sort of drilling home messages or anything like that. So they're kind of interwoven subtly into the books. And we wanted to write books mainly for our own kids to sort of set them up for a mental model of success. And we thought, what are the key skills that we think they need? And we chose 2 softer skills around empathy and perspective taking. And I'll talk about them more specifically in a second. And 2 harder skills around perseverance and managing your emotional state, and also ownership and agency. So they work well together rather than just having one of the skills and not another. And yeah, we love reading them to our kids. So specifically, the first book is called Ted and Tilly Learn an Ancient Power. And actually, the first book is Ted and Tilly and the Great Discovery, and it is based on Plato's Greek allegory called the Allegory of the Cave, which is an amazing little story, and you can read about that yourself or even watch it on YouTube. So we've done it in a children's story. So basically, there's 2 protagonists in the story, Ted and Tilly, brother and sister. And Tilly they're growing up in this cave. They don't know about the outside world. But Tilly somehow finds her way out of the cave into the outside world, and she sees the sun and she sees the flowers, the birds, and the rainbows outside. And it's a whole magical thing that they've never experienced before. But Ted's still back in the cave. So Tilly, she goes back and she wants to tell her brother about this other experience. But Ted, as the story goes in Plato's story as well, does not believe Tilly. So it's that moral that we all have different perspectives. We all have different maps of the world. And in children, if they can sort of understand this, or even in adults, it sets them up for much more flexible thinking styles, which you have a better quality of life, you have better relationships, you can solve problems easier. So that's the first book, so more of a social skill. And the second book is about Ted and Tilly Learn an Ancient Power, and that's a bit of a harder skill where it's more about agency, taking personal responsibility, and that was based on Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's journey to the summit of Mount Everest.
Yes.
Being a Kiwi myself, we're really proud of Sir Edmund Hillary. And so the story goes, Ted and Tilly and their friend are trying to get to the top of this mountain, but a lot of them fail and they make a lot of excuses for not doing it. And then Ted and Tilly sort of overcome these challenges, solve the problem, get to the top of the mountain. So that's that sort of agency, personal responsibility side. And then they realize at the top of the mountain, there are no prizes or accolades for them. It's more that they have an amazing feeling that they've accomplished it in themselves. So that's what that book is about. And now the third book is about managing your emotional states and having perseverance. And this is a timeless skill that all children need. And so in this particular story, I think the story is called Ted and Tilly Face a Storm. So in Ted and Tilly Face a Storm, they're in a forest, they're building a hut, they're doing some free play out in nature, and then there's a storm comes and breaks their hut. So they're overcome with emotions, negative emotions, and it's about them getting back on track and taking ownership of their emotional state. So that's what that book is about. And the last book is a softer skill. It's about curiosity and empathy. And it's driven on the premise that every behavior originates from a positive intention. And that book there is called Ted and Tilly and the Strange Behaviors. So there's a lot of weird behaviors happening in this book. and they don't understand why these people are being mean or acting in inappropriate ways. And they realize, oh, what there is an underlying positive intention that this person is doing it for. So the reason that book's healthy for children is because they, instead of labeling other kids as good or bad or evil, it's like, okay, how can I be more flexible in the way I'm thinking about these things? So once again, it leads to much more healthy relationships and ability to be a bit more flexible and dynamic in the way which you go about your life. So yeah, that's a quick, brief snapshot of all 4 books.
Yeah, and look, you and I spoke a little earlier on, and I'm a mother. I've got a son and a daughter. You're a parent. Yeah, it was really interesting for me. The illustration work was really beautiful as well. Do you want to tell us what inspired you to write the book? You mentioned you're a co-author with your wife. Tell us about maybe what inspired you to write these books, and maybe your background or your wife's background.
Yeah. So I can't really pinpoint what exactly inspired us, but I think having children is a bit of a transformation, can be a bit of a rebirth, and I think there was something to that.
Yeah.
We like most parents, we take our roles as parents really seriously. We want to give our children as best opportunities as possible. So what did that look like for us? It's kind of leading the way and setting them up with these mental models that will hopefully lead them to having a more enjoyable and successful life. And another thing I would say would be, we didn't necessarily like a lot of the children's books that were already out there, or there's a lot of great children's stories, a lot of playful children's stories, but some of them we felt had a few outdated models of thinking about things, such as good and evil. We're not really big believers in good and evil. I think there's more of a better way to think about things.
Yep.
Certainly there's good and evil actions, but not necessarily good and evil thinking styles. And the other thing was, we do a bit of, we're in the game of sort of mental skills and helping children. And some of the horror stories that we didn't really like in children's books around witches and monsters and this kind of stuff. And we know that can also, if it's done too early, it can lead to like an overactive amygdala and lead to stressful, nightmares, which is, we're not really in the business of giving children nightmares. So that was kind of why we wrote the book, if I could pinpoint it.
Yeah, awesome. And what's the best way to connect with you? If we're curious, we're curious to have a look, we're curious to order the book, what's the best way to make the purchase and also connect with you, Wilton?
Yeah, so our books are for sale on mentalskillsnz.com, and you can read a bit more about them there. We're in the process of wanting to get them animated, so people that like to consume things visually and auditorily can do that. So if you know of any good animators, we'll be interested. So they're for sale on mentalskillsnz.com. That's that's my business. So I'm a mental skills coach, where I work with companies and sports teams looking to improve skills and frameworks to set themselves up for growth and success. And also just reach out to myself. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. Yeah, just under Wilton.
Awesome. And look, I'll put all that in our show notes, so that will go in to make it really easy. Wilton, what seems to offer the future? Have you got that taste to be an author, or you said you've got a business in coaching? What's in store in the near future?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the process of writing. I mean, the writing piece of it didn't take long. I wrote each book in one night, so they took 4 nights to write. Yeah. But then the ongoing process of fine-tuning it, I collaborated with someone that specialized a bit more in editing and rhyme and meter in America, an American author, to sort of just get it a bit more perfect or succinct. Yes. And then the process of getting them published and getting it illustrated and getting them printed was quite a good learning experience. Yeah. But hey, I wouldn't rule out doing another book. It's not necessarily my priority right now. Yeah. I'm in the process of just growing my company, Mental Skills NZ, and doing more of that work. So awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, if you do in the future write a book, more kids' books, or even a book, in your career, your chosen careers, certainly stay in contact. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wilton. All the best with the books.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time.
Cheers.